Welcome to The Explainer. I'm absolutely thrilled to have you here today because, wow, we are looking at one of the most rigorously documented multi-witness anomalies in modern history. Okay, let's dive into this. We're going to walk through an incredible minute-by-minute mystery. And honestly, the best part? We aren't relying on rumors or internet urban legends here. Now, we are looking squarely at the raw, verified data and the official records.
Just listen to this frantic real-life dispatch quote. "The darn thing is in Howland Township now. Do you show anything on your radar screen over the Warren area? They're seeing it 50 feet from the ground with a red holding light. No noise." Now, that was a 911 dispatcher literally pleading with the local FAA tower. It instantly establishes the incredibly high stakes and, frankly, the sheer panic of that night. Something massive was in the sky, and trained professionals were scrambling to figure out what on earth it was.
So, let's ground ourselves in the facts. The date is December 14, 1994. The location? Trumbull County, Ohio. It's a crisp, clear winter night. As a reminder, tonight's explainer relies purely on verified 911 dispatch logs, official police radio recordings, and documented officer testimonies. We're looking directly at the historical record of what the authorities themselves reported while on active duty.
Chapter 1, Midnight in Trumbull County.
Let's move to the timeline and see how this builds, because this entire unbelievable chain of events was triggered not by the military and not by the police, but by seemingly random, frantic civilian complaints flooding into a local 911 switchboard. Right around midnight, dispatcher Roy Ann Randolph starts fielding calls from panicking citizens about a huge, low-flying light. At first, she naturally thinks it's a prank, but the calls just keep coming. By 12:30 a.m., she realizes this is a genuine situation and begins alerting local patrol units. Finally, at 12:58 a.m., a seasoned police officer named Toby Maloro is officially dispatched to Sampson Drive to investigate what exactly is hovering over the neighborhood.
Chapter 2, The Officers Stalled R. Sergeant Toby Maloro of Liberty Township was the very first officer to get dangerously close to this anomaly. And this brilliantly illustrates how his encounter changes the entire scope of the investigation. So he's driving down Sampson Drive when, out of nowhere, a blinding beam of light hits his vehicle. Immediately, he suffers a complete electrical failure. His engine dies, his police radio dies, his computer just completely shuts off. He steps out of his car and looks up to see a massive craft hovering just over the trees in absolute eerie silence. Then suddenly, the craft shoots off at a tremendous speed, and the exact moment it leaves, his cruiser's power spontaneously returns. To truly grasp the sensory details of this moment, we have to look at Sergeant Maloro's direct quote from the source material. He said, "All at once, my car shut off. My computer, my radio, it lit this whole street up, just hovering there, no sound." Later on, he described the object as being roughly the size of a football field, completely silent, and so intensely bright he had to physically shield his eyes. This wasn't just a fleeting glance, right? This was a close proximity encounter by a highly trained observer.
Chapter 3, Radar Silence and Official Denials.
Now, while police on the ground are staring right at this massive object, a very, very different story is unfolding behind the scenes as the 911 switchboard frantically tries to get answers from local aerospace authorities. Consider the chilling dramatic irony here. On one hand, we've got multiple police units reporting a massive craft changing colors, hovering incredibly low over residential streets. But on the other hand, the FAA radar from the nearby Youngstown Tower is a completely blank screen, reporting absolutely zero activity within a 60-mile radius. How can something the size of a football field not show up on radar?
While the FAA tower operator's official response to the 911 dispatcher was absolute. They said, "I am looking at the radar scope 60-mile diameter of Youngstown and there is nothing out there. Not even anything up high, no airplanes." So this leaves us with two fascinating possibilities. Either this was an anomaly entirely outside our normal understanding, or it was a highly classified stealth military test from the nearby airbase and authorities were deliberately denying its existence. Honestly, both options are just absolutely fascinating.
Chapter 4, The Multi-Agency Chase. Regardless of what it actually was, the object certainly didn't stay still. It began moving rapidly across county lines, triggering an unprecedented pursuit. And the sheer scale of this is staggering. Liberty, Howland, Brookfield, Niles, Girard, Warren, and Cortland. So the crucial point is that over a dozen trained professionals, spread out across 10 to 20 miles, were all coordinating over the radio, triangulating the exact same object in real time. This wasn't just one isolated officer making a mistake. This was a massive, multi-jurisdictional visual confirmation. Now, you might be wondering, could they have just made a mistake? Skeptics often suggest that officers might just be misidentifying a bright planet like Venus hovering low in the sky. But listen to this brilliant quote from off-duty Lieutenant James Baker to counter that exact theory. He actually climbed up an abandoned radar tower that night just to get a better vantage point. And he saw a triad of massive lights flashing red, yellow, blue, and green in unison. He famously stated over the radio, if they are those planets those guys were talking about, then they're planets with Christmas lights on.
Chapter 5: Hoaxes and Ohio's History.
So, if it wasn't a planet, could it have been a hoax? To understand that, we really need to look at the broader context of what it takes to fake something of this magnitude, and honestly, the logistical nightmare of faking a UFO. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is that a podcast documentary team actually tried to recreate a hoax like this in the Sedona Desert, and they found it incredibly difficult. I mean, it requires perfect weather. Literally, any wind ruins it. It requires massive amounts of industrial helium. We're talking 150 cubic feet for just a small saucer, which, by the way, is hard to buy without raising suspicion. And achieving the perfect weight-to-lift ratio using thin plastic means the fake craft is highly prone to just popping and crashing. So pulling off a perfectly silent, perfectly illuminated football field-sized hoax that manages to fool over a dozen police officers, it's nearly impossible.
Furthermore, the Trumbull County incident doesn't just exist in a vacuum. Ohio actually has a rich, deeply documented history of law enforcement encountering unexplainable aerial phenomena. For instance, in April 1966, Portage County deputies chased a glowing metallic disc for 86 miles into Pennsylvania. Then, in October 1973, there was a major statewide flap involving an Army helicopter having a close encounter with a 60-foot gray object. And then, of course, our December 1994 Trumbull County pursuit. This really shows that the 1994 event is part of a much larger historical puzzle in this specific region.
Which brings us to the ultimate question we have to ask ourselves after reviewing all of this verified on-the-record evidence. Was this entire event a massive, coordinated psychological illusion? Was it highly classified military stealth technology being tested right over a civilian population? Or was it something else entirely? The dispatch tapes remain in the archives, the officers stand by their stories, and the sky above Trumbull County keeps its secrets. I really hope this explainer sparked your curiosity to look deeper into the data yourself. Keep asking questions and keep learning.